Hey guys, so I think you're gonna be surprised that Stormbind is actually pretty damn amazing skill, but it does have its own issues. So I'm gonna be talking about how I made a build, and I have good news and the other news, I guess. Uh, the good news, well, that it's actually a very good skill. It can do all of the content, and in this video you're gonna see me doing up to tier 16 maps. This single target, I try to balance between damage and tankiness, because normally I would just go full damage and just try to survive somehow. But this time I try to get a bit more tankiness by investing into block, because otherwise the build has like 9000 effective HP but doesn't have any mitigation. It does have some conditional things, but it doesn't have like actual mitigation like Fortify, which you could get. But I guess the slightly bad thing is that you kind of need to use mana increasing items like Doedre's Malevolence gloves, which I think are almost mandatory, because you want to not arm, but you want to improve runes as fast as possible, which requires you to spend a lot of mana fast. I made a previous video, my previous video, I talked about more in details about the Stormbind and how weird it is, how it functions very weirdly with spell totem. And for now it still remains the same. When you link Stormbind with a spell totem, your totems lay down runes, but it counts as your hits, so you benefit from leech. You also, the drawback is that you can't run reflects, because you would take the damage. You get on kill effects and like onslaught, which is also very nice. It's just weird skill, and at the start while leveling I would probably not recommend to use Stormbind unless you get like really good cast speed, and maybe not using with totem and self-casting runes and then using rune blast, or maybe just use some other skill to level up, and then once you get to like 64 or the number you can equip Doedre's Malevolence gloves, then you can switch to to Stormbind. Another kind of almost mandatory item, or at least if you're increasing the mana cost, then obviously you will consider at least using Indigon. And I think without Indigon it may not even work that well, because yeah, you really want to benefit from that increased mana cost, and it just makes it so much better. You basically improve all of the runes, well, not all, but let's say at least 9 runes almost instantly. And also, if you link Orb of Storm with Archmage and you have Indigon, that Orb of Storm may get like 300,000 DPS for like a second or two. Once your mana cost becomes too high, then you can't cast anything and start losing the Indigon power. But yeah, basically 2 items are, I would say, are kind of mandatory. It's Doedre's Malevolence gloves and Indigon. You may try using Voidbringer gloves and maybe using Fever Mind jewels, but that takes a jewel socket and you may not want that, and it may still not be enough. Flat mana cost is just better for charming skills that have like low base mana cost. Once you get to a certain level, when you get enough cast speed, and in my case, since I'm using totem to lay down runes, I got a lot of totem placement speed from Hierophant, so it does feel very smooth. I place totems very fast. I only got 2 totems. I did not want to get more, because that would mean I would lower the damage, because I would have to use multi-totem. Then it feels pretty good. You still need some cast speed for totems to lay down runes fast, but it does have pretty high cast speed naturally. The base cast time is 0.12 seconds for Stormbind. Also, Stormbind is pretty cheap, so you can get level 21, quality 23 pretty easily. You actually don't really need quality, but quality does give some cast speed, so it does help. And you will want to use 2 setups. One setup for Stormbind and another separate setup to increase the mana cost for Rune Blast, because you want to increase your mana cost on Rune Blast to improve runes faster, which is basically a clear speed improvement, because you can do more damage faster. You just tap it and you improve all the runes to the max and do big damage. Also, the clear speed is just amazing. It looks slow, but I was getting over 300 million XP per hour, which is pretty unusual to me. I usually get around 250, because my natural speed and progression is around 250 million XP per hour on most of the builds, so I don't try to go faster, but you can definitely go faster. You may want to use like even shield charge, but shield charge with this would probably be pretty bad, because The skill itself is inherently clunky because it requires two things to do damage. So imagine, and it has pretty big delay, so if you shield charge into enemy pack, you then would have to summon the totem, then wait for totem to lay down runes, which isn't that long, but it still is dangerous, and then blast the runes. So shield charge may not be an option, so I try to stay far away, and you can actually off screen, almost 2 screens away. The totem, you basically place a totem at the edge of your screen, and that totem can reach enemies another screen away, and then you just still stand in the same spot, and then you just click on one of those runes and it just kind of proliferates into other rooms. So the clear speed is actually pretty good, and in some cases I think this build excels in blighted maps or anything that requires like a stationary defense mode, because you just place totem keeps placing runes, you just keep blasting them, and it basically covers the whole screen. I don't have any explosions on top of that, but if you got like Herald explosions, that would be just insane clear speed, or one of those cluster jewels. By the way, clusters I'm using multiple clusters, and mainly on the cluster jewels I'm getting block, because I figured that would be my best way of improving survivability. And currently I have 41 attack block, 49 projectile attack block, and 24 spell block without any flask. So it's alright, but it definitely, I from time to time I still get one-shotted just out of nowhere without even being able to react. And I do have, like I said, over 9,000, I think over 9,000 effective health. So overall, the build, I am very satisfied, and this is quickly becoming one of my favorite skills this league. And of course, this is first time I'm playing this skill, and you can make this in many different ways. You can do it non-crit. I'm doing a crit build because crit is just more damage, but you can do non-crit and use the lightning damage is lucky with non-critical hits. I probably could use it on this one as well, and when I don't crit, it would make my damage a bit more consistent. Also, I believe every rune rolls critical strike at the same time, so either all runes crit or none of them crit. By the way, the explosions can overlap, and that is the power of this skill. You place a bunch of runes where AoE is, by the way, consistent. The explosion AoE does get increased, so you do want as much AoE as possible, so that more and more runes can overlap. And the latest PoB version now has radius, and in my current setup I have 31 radius, blast radius, and that means all of my 9 runes overlap, at least 9 runes basically overlap on a single target. Sometimes if the target is in a bad spot it doesn't, but most of the time it's pretty good damage. Now, with everything up, with Power Righteous Fire and I think without Arcane Cloak, the PoB damage is around 400,000 average hit per rune. And like I said, you can hit with at least 9 runes at the same time. It's quite big damage, but that's after spending 5,000 mana recently, so it may be able to reach up to 2000% increase spell damage from Indigon, which is massive. So because of that, because of Indigon, you don't really care about increased damage on the passive skill tree. It's mostly useless. You may still want to get cast speed and then some more multipliers like critical strike multiplier and in general critical strike chance. By the way, you can get a lot more damage when you see on this build. You probably can at least double the damage, but I wanted to find a balance between defenses and damage. I'm using, for example, defense, of course. I'm using like block nodes, block cluster jewels, so I could replace them with like a nerve, which would give more damage. So the build is actually pretty cheap, I would say. I did not invest more than 4 exalts into this build. I tried to buy better jewels, and to start the build you basically need Indigon and Doedre's Malevolence, and then it's up to you basically. And I guess Azir's Foible Amulet is very nice as well. But once you get those items, you can do so many different things. You don't even need to go with the totems. You can use self-cast. Self-cast is also pretty viable, but you're probably gonna want more cast speed than what I have. So my current setup, let's talk about links, I guess, or maybe first about items. So like I said, Indigon, Doedre's Malevolence gloves give flat 50 mana cost to skills, and that's very nice for charming skills. On a self-cast, you may even want to try Voidbringer gloves. They do have crit chance, but experiment and see what works better. For the body armor, for a cheap body armor, I decided to go with the Shroud of Lightless because you just need a 5 link, and then you end up having a 6 link, and inside it I have Stormbind linked with Control Destruction. Don't really need to quality it, because quality only gives increased spell damage, and that's like nothing. Then I have Lightning Penetration. So the Lightning Penetration is better than flat added lightning damage against the bosses. Against normal enemies, obviously added lightning damage is gonna be more. But why swap gems? Just run Lightning Pen. Next I got Infused Channeling and Spell Totem. Now Infused Channeling is a bit weird. The totem does get infusion, but only for damage, or was it for mitigation? Whichever it is. But no, wait, it is getting the mitigation, but not the damage part from infusion. However, on the other setup, I got Stormbind linked with Arcane Surge, faster casting, and Infused Channeling again. The Infused Channeling, when I channel the Rune Blast, I get Infused Channeling, and I get the damage boost. So the totem also places the runes with increased damage from Infused Channeling. And then obviously Arcane Surge is to give me more mana regen, more cast speed, more spell damage, and faster casting as well to just make it smoother. You want to consume mana faster. Then I got Orb of Storm linked with Power Charge on crit, faster casting, and Archmage support. The Archmage with the Orb of Storm is pretty nice to increase the mana cost because of Indigon, but once you start ramping up your mana cost, it may actually work against you. The mana cost may become too high. By the way, the Orb of Storm with the Archmage and Indigon can do pretty insane damage. It goes over 300,000 DPS on the falling, but it's not like a consistent damage. It just falls off very, very fast. Next I got just random boots with life resistance, movement speed. I am using Balrighteous Fire. Then obviously Flame Dash, Clarity. I'm using Clarity. The shield, I was using just a normal shield, ES shield with crit chance and then life resistances. I tried to get more armor or some kind of mitigation, so I was spamming essences to craft crit chance for spells on this shield, because normally you can only get crit chance for spells on pure ES shields. But I didn't really get anything very useful. Shield basically just crit chance for spells because you want to increase your crit chance as much as possible, and then life resistances. And well, decent amount of block chance would also be nice. For the weapon, I think I only paid 5 KS for this weapon. It has big mana. It also has some AoE, doesn't matter that much, but it has 190% increased critical strike chance for spells basically. And that's all you want. The increased damage doesn't matter, increased spell damage doesn't really matter much. The cast speed would be nice, but don't need it. But just try to get crit chance for spells, crit multi if you can, and then mana. And maybe flat lightning damage to spells. On the rings, you want rings with life, mana regen, resistances. I also got lucky, bought this one with 1 minimum frenzy charge, so that helps as well. Azir's Foible obviously is very amazing. It gives so much mana and mana regen, and also reduces the attribute requirements. Also anointed the block node near the Shadow Deflection, which gives 4% spell and attack block and 8% projectile attack block. On the belts, I'm not sure if I would say that you have to get increased mana recovery rate, but it definitely helps. But basically life, resistances, whichever you need, and if you can, get the increased mana recovery rate. Now I also have 2 cast when damage taken setups, one with Wave of Conviction and Enfeeble. You may want to replace Enfeeble with like Conductivity or Ally Weakness or Assassin's Mark. If you can actually get Assassin's Mark on hit ring with some decent mana and mana regen, do that. Maybe even get a second course. By the way, my cat says hi. Then I got another cast when damage taken a bit higher level with Tempest Shield, because Tempest Shield gives some block, well 3% block. And also funny that I got Tempest Shield Helmet Enchantment for 3 additional chains, but that whatever, doesn't matter. And Arcane Cloak is also automated with cast when damage taken. It basically consumes, let's see, it consumes 55 of my current mana and uses that as a I guess shield buffer. It gives me around 1.8 2000 shield buffer, so that's pretty nice as well. And it also, when it automatically consumes that mana, it also increases the mana cost because of Indigon. So then all of your spells will be dealing more damage when you consume that mana. And I also have so much mana and mana regen that My mana is almost never going down before my health. If I'm dying, it's because I lose too much life before I lose mana. It would actually be nice to use the Shaper's Amulet. I don't remember what it's called. The Impressence? Is it Impressence? And run Blasphemy Temporal Chains, because the slower enemies are, the more time you're gonna have to cast your totems and destroy the blast runes. But I don't know if that's viable, because you would be losing a lot of maximum mana and mana regen. So it depends on how the rest of your build looks like. Also, I really wanted to use Agnostic Timeless Jewel. Agnostic basically drains your mana and heals your life when you are not on full life. But that also removes your energy shield. So sadly, I did not want to lose energy shield, but if you're not doing a Hierophant, you may consider actually running Agnostic, because otherwise I don't really have Life Leech. I basically rely on Life Flask. This is level 89. At level 90 I could get another jewel socket and get a bit more life, a bit more damage. On jewels, I got one jewel with onslaught on kill, because it does count as your kills for some reason. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not. Even if it is a bug and later it's gonna be hotfixed, you basically would not be able to get onslaught, and that's pretty much it. By the way, you can get power charge on crit body armor or the cluster jewels. This one, chilling presence, nearby enemies are chilled, and then the Storm Rider, 10% chance to gain power charge when you shock a chilled enemy, and also increase a bit more lightning damage. So you chill the enemies, you slow them down, and then you have a chance to get power charge when you shock them. But while it does work well for the clear speed, it's not very reliable on single target. So in the end, I dropped that and just using Orb of Storms. Now let's look at the passive skill tree. It's also a bit complicated when you see my cluster jewels. But this is Hierophant, fast event for Ritual of Awakening, and I think that's almost a must, because it gives so much totem placement speed that it actually makes the build feel not clunky. If you're not going with the totem and doing self-cast, obviously you're not gonna get that, and maybe you're gonna go with Divine Guidance and then Sanctuary of Forts and maybe something else like Illuminate Devotion to get more AoE, Leech, and then go with Arcane Blessing maybe. I actually went through the elemental nodes first and later refunded once I got on Indigon and got the build going, but first you're probably gonna want to go through elemental nodes, grab life, grab some AoE, and then depending on what skill you're using, you may want more damage sooner, you may not need more damage depending on the items. But here's the passive skill tree basically. You get life, you get mana nodes. These mana nodes are very nice. This gives some spell damage and also gives a lot of maximum mana. This also gives mana regen per spell block. Shaman's Dominant for crit chance, crit multi for your totems. And this is actually scaling with totem damage, because it is totem. Runes are being placed by totem, so it does scale with totem. But if you are self-casting, obviously you're gonna not take that, and maybe even go more to the shadow area to get the crit nodes. I would love to get that, but it's too many points. This is level 89. Actually, you may not even want to grab all of these cluster jewels. I'm not entirely convinced that it's worth getting cluster jewels on this one, or maybe you want something else. If you could figure out a way to be a bit tanker, maybe with the shield charge fortify, maybe you could get some damaging cluster jewels. But what I went for is basically block and AoE. So I got this one, which gives these nodes. This one is not that important, but Leech, spell damage Leech as energy shield is pretty nice. It doesn't give that much sustain, but it's pretty nice. This one, 6% chance to block spell damage if you have cast spell recently, so you basically always have that. You need item level 75 large cluster jewel to be able to get 2 jewel sockets on it. I went with the 2 because I wanted to get as much block as possible, and it still doesn't feel like it's enough. One of the jewels is with the immune to curses while channeling. This is kind of nice, but you're still probably gonna want curse removal and curse immunity flask. At level 90 I will be refunding this point and getting another jewel socket basically. On this one, this is basically a block node. Give some flat mana, give some block chance, and then this one chance to get endurance charge on block. I have 2 of these. This one and this one. So I have 40% chance to get endurance charge when I block. And then this one is for increased AoE, which by the way I think is bugged in PoB. And instead of this, it's giving me this node. But this gives 25% increased area of effect if you have killed at least 5 enemies recently. And this is pretty nice for clear speed. By the way, I did not mention, but the build feels the best in open maps, and all the small maps, all the tight corridor maps are very bad for this build. I would try to avoid all of them. Also, you want some totem tankiness. And obviously this node, this battle rouse, is pretty nice because 8% of damage taken again as mana over 4 seconds when you hit. So you take the damage, and over the 4-second duration you're gonna recover more mana, basically. Obviously mind over mat, and I think that's pretty much it for the passive. Now the next build, actually I'm not gonna reveal the next build yet. So yeah, for now, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Oh, such a long video, bye bye.